certainly an awareness that when people come to work, you know, they often come to work with their own baggage. In fact, the way that I describe it to team members is, you know, they come to work with their own, perhaps a glass of things that are happening in their life. And work is one part of it. And sometimes something that someone says at work, you know, you're constantly tipping water, and it might be that's what the tipping point is, but work is a part of it, and people come to work with all of this other stuff.
And that was Michael Pagsanjan, and this is Shoulders of Atlas. I'm your host, Jeff Pagsanjan, and welcome to episode 3. In this episode, we catch up with Michael, who is my cousin, but is also the principal lawyer of MPS Law. Now, MPS Law is a boutique law firm that is passionate about self-determination and working closely with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. Although the firm is relatively young, they have been able to achieve many great outcomes, one of which was their part in advising and negotiating the landmark Yamatji Nation Settlement in Western Australia, highlighting the impact that they have had within a relatively short time period. We take a step back and discuss Michael's early influences that have helped shape who he is and his reasons for having a crack at entrepreneurship, and acknowledge the support of his family and friends. Throughout our chat, you get a sense of Michael's humility and grace. He's quick to acknowledge the support of his team and the sacrifices of his family that underlie his individual successes, such as the 2018 Young Lawyer of the Year Award, which was awarded by the Law Society of South Australia. Michael's characterisation of life's priorities is akin to juggling a lot of balls. Some you can let fall, whereas others are too precious. Family falls into the latter. And as such, he had to come to the difficult decision of reprioritising his volunteering commitments within for-purpose organisations. We chat briefly about his motivations behind supporting Movember, the difficulty that we have in being able to have conversations, and the stigmas that still surround mental health. We round out the discussion with his views as a business owner around the steps taken within MPS Law to help promote a healthy workplace. So let's not keep you waiting any further. Let's dive into the chat with Michael. The purpose of the whole project is around getting different perspectives around views on health, and being as you're a person that I look up to in terms of what you've done professionally with running your own business, and also what you do in terms of your contributions to the community as well. It's been something that I would love to unpack as part of this project. So thanks very much for joining us.
It's all right. It's a pretty flattering intro. Not many people say they look up to me, given I'm about 3 foot tall, so I appreciate that as well. But no, look, always happy to chat. You know, these are issues that I'm passionate about, so happy to share what I can.
Fantastic. Now, in case there are people that might not know, but you and I are related, we're cousins. So in case you see the resemblance, the good-looking resemblance, it's
catching both of our good sizes, the cameras, yeah.
So we are related, and because we're related, I do happen to have the inside track on some details on you. But as a bit of an intro question, I remember finding out that you were once a karate champion back in your younger years. Is that
Yeah. Don't let my size fool you. But many years ago, I competed in the World Championships and in Las Vegas, and was lucky enough to come back with a couple of medals too.
Fantastic.
It was great for me as a kid. I think I really enjoyed that discipline and taught me some values that probably, to be honest, have shaped some of the things I've done as an adult. But probably not something that I can look back on as remembering anything whatsoever. But it was a really good fun time, and one that, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't for my mum supporting me to be able to do that. It's not a cheap little exercise, and it's not necessarily a well-known sport or endeavour. But yeah, it was a really fun time. One that I remember at the time I was nervous, but looking back on it, pretty thankful to have had that at such a young age as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And the reason why I bring that up, it seems like karate seems to be making a renaissance now on Netflix with Cobra Kai, the new TV series coming out. And I wanted your serious opinion here. Are you team Daniel LaRusso or team Johnny Zabka?
So I don't know the show. I've got absolutely no idea about anything. All I know about karate now is my son's just started doing it, and it's really cool actually watching your son or your child pick something up that you're interested in, and you have to find that balance of wanting to push them, but also just letting them have a bit of fun. I was in high school always tested on my karate skills, if I can put it like that. Okay. And I think there was probably some partially racially motivated nicknames, but also probably motivated with the things that I did, where I think at one stage I was called Mr. Miyagi, and at other times I think I was called some other names. But I think the Karate Kid and doing those moves, it's probably one that I've never been able to master. I don't think that one-legged kick or whatever it was. But as I say, karate's been was great for me, but I'd have absolutely no idea what I'm doing now.
And it sounds like that. Yeah, it's laid the foundations of who you are today. Like it is a sport or a discipline around discipline and perfect technique, and it sounds like it's had some practical applications outside of the dojo from what you've just said then.
I think it has, I wouldn't be able to pin it down to a particular experience, but I was only saying the other day to a friend how, sure, mum was taking me to karate and she was, of course, paying for the lessons, but I was the one who had to iron my uniform and, make sure it was always clean. I was the one who put it on myself to do the training. And of course, the things that you learn in that training, it's not just about the physical parts. It's about that respect, that the ability to follow instructions, and also goal setting as well. Again, looking back on it, I probably didn't realise just all those skills that I was learning. Maybe the soft skills that not just karate. I think any sort of endeavour, whether it's a musical instrument or singing or another sport. I think all of those types of things as kids can help shape who you are. Yeah. Probably a lot to be said, and I'm not an expert in this. There's probably a lot to be said about nurture and nature. It's probably as much my nature is to have a personality that likes to kind of focus in on something and have that determination to get something done. That's probably as much my personality, perhaps, as it is that environment that helps you promote those types of skills.
Yeah. And speaking of those, the determination and focus, you are the principal lawyer here at MPS Law, which we are currently at in these beautiful offices. Which is, you've only been in here since you mentioned August, was it?
Yeah, just late last year we moved here. I founded the practice 2016, I reckon it was. So what's that? This will be our 6th year, and we've grown from myself to now a team. And as you say, this is a beautiful office. We've been really fortunate with the work that's come across our desk, which has allowed us to grow. And growing hasn't been the objective. It's not been our goal, but it's just been the necessary step or response to trying to do the work that's asked of us. So really fortunate to be able to lead a team. Really proud of this team as well, and the work that we're doing. But there's a long way to go yet for our practice, and we'll keep just trying to chip away.
That's fantastic. So you're in your 6th year. If we can take a step back to 2016, what made the leap into business or entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. I'm pretty passionate about self-determination. I work predominantly with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as an advisor. Passionate about this space, passionate about clients making informed decisions, and I wanted to give it a crack. Professionally, I thought it was at the right time for us to, that is us as in my wife Tamron and I, to do it, because it's been very much a team effort. So she backed me in. Friends and colleagues that I was speaking to kept saying to me, do it now. Why wait? If this is something that you want to do and you've got some goals in mind, why not now? And at that stage, we just had our first child, Miller, who she's 7-8 months old when we started the practice. which is really difficult timing for every parent. You know, as you would know, you're kind of in the deep end, you're not sure what's going on. And for Tamron to back me in, for my family to back me in, and for friends just to keep saying, back yourself in and keep encouraging, probably a really great decision in hindsight. At the time, it didn't all end up the way that I thought it would. And, there was probably a time where I was twiddling my thumbs for the first month or two, where I was really questioning the decision, questioning whether or not I should have stayed in the role that I was in. But again, just kept taking that feedback from others to back yourself in, to have a crack. And again, not necessarily within the profession, but I was fortunate to be around people, including entrepreneurs, and some of which have gone on to do some great things, some great South Australian businesses, to do some, groundbreaking, almost not just nation leading, but leading the world in a whole host of different things. Being in that environment where the spirit was to just have a crack, to learn from mistakes, that type of it's not aggressiveness, it's not arrogance, but it's certainly a willingness to take risks. Being in that environment just promoted that energy, just to give it a crack, and actually try and make sure that the team members who join us, we adopt that same mentality. So clearly, as a law firm, we manage our risks, and we advise very carefully, but it's about backing yourself in, and the team backing each other in, and saying, we've all got those skills, we can all contribute, and let's all back each other in to try and find that way forward.
And it sounds like perseverance maybe the theme that sort of helped get you through. And I just want to tease that, unpack that a little bit more in terms of, you mentioned that in the early days there was a bit of doubt there. What was your mindset that helped get you out of that doubt, or help you navigate the doubt?
Yeah. It's probably being comfortable with the uncertainty. I still have doubts. I have doubts now. It's just that the scale and the level of doubt and risk is much greater, but also means that we've got a bit of a history now to say that we will continue to keep doing great work. So the risk is still there, the doubt's still there, but it's about being comfortable with that level of, as I say, uncertainty. And perhaps, if anything, in the last couple of years, the way businesses have operated, and for us, we travelled around the country to do what we do with lots of different communities. COVID's taught us that a number of things, and without trying to make light or make something good when it is inherently bad, it certainly taught us that uncertainty is true of every day, every work, every position, and sometimes as your own kind of business owner, or having a stake in what you're doing, or being passionate about what you do, it just really brings that uncertainty to the front, and you accept it, you embrace it. Doesn't mean you're ever really stoked with it. There are still nights where, I kind of might get a couple hours sleep and then wake up in the early hours and not get back to sleep because I'm worried about something, whether it's to do with the business or something else. So, the concerns and risks are still there, but you just get a little bit more comfortable with that. And you've got a bit of a bank of other experiences that will tell you the sun's going to come up tomorrow. It's going to be okay. And again, back yourself in. You really just have a crack. And I know I keep saying that, and I'll probably say it throughout, but I think it's a genuine kind of commitment just to giving it a go, and maybe being comfortable with the likelihood or the reality that you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to know what's going on. I mean, as a business owner, you're kind of an IT specialist. You're a marketer. You're a manager. You're a leader. You construct furniture. When you move into new offices, you mount TVs. When you move into new offices, you're all of these things. And it's not because you're an expert in any of them, but you're just giving it a go, seeing what happens.
Yeah. You just really embody getting it done. Like, just especially when you're starting your own practice from the ground up, like you're really having to wear a lot of hats and find yourself having to do those things to make sure you get through to the end of the day, or keep the success of the business in mind by doing those things, which is I guess part of from what I've read about entrepreneurs, it is part of the journey and getting yourself through. In terms of being able to operate at such a high level, because I did happen to read your CV, you were nominated as one of the young lawyers, one of the best young lawyers here in South Australia in 2019.
Oh gosh, I can't recall, but yeah, that was nice to receive that recognition from the profession. I guess there's a lot to it, and I don't know whether there's any one or two things that really contribute to that. But I guess what I know from my experience is that the awards that I've been fortunate to receive, that it's nice and they're lovely. It's nice to have your name there, but it's very much a recognition of lots of things around you. So whether it's recognition as a lawyer of what we do as a practice, that's not necessarily just recognition of me and my name. It's a recognition of the team and the work that we do and the sacrifices our team make and the vision that all of our team members have. Similarly with other recognitions, that's not necessarily a recognition just of what I've done, but the sacrifices my family has made. And as a father to 3 kids, my wife Tamarin, she's a profession in her own right, has a profession in her own right, but certainly her support and her willingness to, I guess, commit to that hard work in the same way that I commit to hard work. It's that partnership is what really enables that personal success and wearing of those different hats. And it's not something which I think I ever get the balance perfect or right every time. So, whether I think in the last couple of years I've just started trying to taper back some of the other things that I've done, like being directors of being a voluntary director on for-purpose organisations. I've tried to take a step back from that, where really it came down to priorities, and if I had a spare evening or a weekend, I wanted to make sure I was with family rather than with respect to those organisations and the great work that they do and continue to do. And the boards, I don't think that I have at the moment the time to be able to sacrifice to commit to those really important causes. So I've had to make a conscious decision in the last few years, and that's probably come about through a number of things. But I think certainly having that mountain biking accident, what's that, 2.5 years ago, that kind of rocked me a little bit to try and say, well, what's, if you're doing all this time and you're having to do rehabilitation, what's most important? And I had to decide. And so unfortunately, took a step back from those organisations and then tried to focus on family and the business and the organisation.
Yeah. And it sounds like, that you've really prioritised what you've needed to, you've reflected upon where you're at as a person, professionally and personally, and you've been committed to a lot of different causes outside of your own practice. As you mentioned before, you were on you were a director of Nexus Art Group.
Yeah, Nexus Arts, the Australian Refugee Association, both of which are fantastic organisations. But yeah, I had to make that decision, and that prioritisation. That's, again, I don't know whether I've got that right. I don't know whether I'll ever feel that I've got that right. But I guess it's about trying to. I've heard it described to me like this, so I'm not going to pretend that these are my words, but. My interpretation of what I've heard is it's when they're juggling those different balls, whether it's your family, you're catching up with mates, your work, doing some sport. When you're juggling those different balls, you've just got to realise what balls are you okay to drop and what balls will bounce back up to you. On the other hand, what balls are so fragile that you can't drop? What are those ones that you're just going to have to keep cycling through and keep in your hands? And so, for me, obviously the organisation and the business and the practice is super important, as are my clients. But clearly my family, and having that, making sure that's my priority, and actually doing that in practice. So not just saying that's my priority. Actually, then whether it's a decision about what you might do on a Friday afternoon, or a Saturday morning or a weekend, it's making sure that, hang on, I'd actually much prefer to hang out and watch my daughter do gymnastics, or go and jump on the trampoline with the kids, or take the dog for a walk to the park with the kids. It's those types of things where I realise now that's what I like to do. That's my preference, and I want to do that. It's not just that I feel like I should do it. I want to. I love doing it.
Yeah, and it sounds like the families plays an important part of who you are. You mentioned before that you're a loving father to 3 beautiful children, and also a devoted husband to your wife Tamarin as well. What do those titles of dad and husband mean to you?
It's hard. I was trying to work out what they might mean, and the best I could think of in response was trying to give the examples of how I feel and what I do, because parenting is by far the most difficult thing that I've ever done. I was saying just before, I don't really ever feel like I know what I'm doing. I think there are things about it which are exceptionally challenging, and maybe, I don't know whether this is true for all parents, but certainly for me, the level of fatigue is really challenging. Whether it's fatigue because of a baby isn't sleeping, or fatigue just because you're doing lots of running around and after school sports and things like that. I also find really challenging feeling like I miss out. So when I go travelling for work, and I've just missed the kids terribly, and I just want to get home as soon as I can and spend time with them. So I find all those things really challenging. But there are things about it which you just can't. I struggle to find words to describe it. Whether it's the late night snuggle where you're so tired, but then your daughter or your son or your child sleeping in your arms. That's a beautiful feeling. As is the feeling when you're about to cross the road and a little hand goes up to reach and holds your hand. As are seeing their eyes light up when they discover something or they're making something, and there's that level of pride, and all those little things I find hard to describe, but that's what makes being a parent. But I said before, I don't know whether I've ever got that balance right. I certainly still feel like there's more work for me to do in that space. But again, maybe that's parenting, and maybe you're just always trying to work out what you're doing, and you're always feeling like you're just trying to get through that day or that night or that weekend or whatever it is. So I don't know if I can describe it in what it means, but I can, I guess, tell you how it feels. And it's those extreme spectrum of emotions where it's this indescribable love to then being like, what is going on? Why did you do that? If I use the example of when my kids are trying to get ready for school, when we've tried to develop your routine and your charts, and you say, okay, Murray, put your shoes on. Murray, put your shoes on. Murray, get your shoes, mate. And then after about 5, Murray, put your shoes on, for goodness sake, mate. Come on. So, I think certainly trying to keep your patience during that time. Maybe it also shows as well that for generations before us, our parents, their parents, we're all just doing the very best we can, and there's a newfound respect. I certainly have a newfound respect for my mum as a single mum raising my sister and I, and I'm sure that's true of most new parents, where they just realise just how well parents before them did. And every generation has new challenges, and every generation of parents just trying to make the best of what they can do.
It sounds like you've definitely built an appreciation for what your mum did for you growing up, and parenthood's brought that to a front in terms of reflecting on where you are now as a person, and reflecting on the future of your own 3 children. You look at that and go and have an appreciation that actually it's a fantastic job, and I think you mentioned it before. It's really about the doing the best that you can. I think I love that tagline about like that's what parenthood and being a husband, it is about doing the best that you can, and it's sounds like it's a ever evolving work in progress for you.
Yeah.
For you, it feels like you're not getting the balance right, but probably you might not be able to tell whether you've got the balance right until maybe later on down the track. It's probably one of those things that you won't know until later on in life. But
yeah, I just want the kids to be. This is an easy comment to say, but to be happy and kind. You know, I don't ever want to. Of course, if the kids go on and do an amazing thing, well, that's fantastic for them. But you know, we're not aiming to raise the next president or prime minister or another lawyer or a teacher, or you know, we're aiming to raise nice kids. You know, kids who are going to be good friends. And you know, it's funny because there's so much engineering in parenthood. There's so many different techniques, so many things that you could be doing. But as I say, when you wake up several times at the night, you start the day in the morning and to the point where they're hopefully asleep at night. Throughout the whole time, I think you're just trying to do the best you can. And again, I've probably lost my patience more than I'm proud of, but I'm hopeful that you just keep chipping away, and you know, every time you try and learn something new and try and model that behaviour. But again, I don't know whether you get that right. Maybe in years to come you're right. Maybe we'll look back and go, yeah, we did an okay job. But yeah, I think when you're in the trenches, it's easy to not think that far ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree. We'll probably step away from, I guess, your professional and your personal spheres of how you've got to be where you are, and maybe I just want to highlight that you were one of my early inspirations for doing the Movember fundraising for Movember when you invited me to be a part of your band of Mo Bros, Mo Direction. I think that was at the
Yeah, that was Mo Direction. We used to always spend a bit of time trying to come up with the names, and that was one of our names for the teams. I can't remember what year that was. Over a few years ago now.
It's been a while now. I definitely look a lot younger and have less bags under my eyes.
Less grey hair.
The progress photos for that year, but in terms of Movember as a charity or as a cause. Why was that important for you to support?
The obvious answer is, for once, there was a natural trait that was favourable to me, which was I could grow facial hair really well from a young age. And so compared to my mates, that put me one step ahead of a lot of them, which was good.
I missed out on those genes, I tell you what.
Yeah,
I was so patchy.
I somehow nailed that gene for moustache growing and beard growing. So I always was happy to grow a moustache. I thought that was a bit fun. Although these days it's fashionable. It looks a bit hipster now.
It is.
Not on me, because I look like a bit of a combination of a drug lord with some other traits which I won't say. But I think for me that I was very much raised by my sister and my mum, and I had my uncles to look up to. I had mates to look up to. What struck me and still strikes me as something, even a personal trait, is the difficulty of having conversations. What I loved about Movember, particularly when it wasn't that big, when this was in the early days of Movember, and I remember, you know, we might have raised, like there was back in the days we actually wrote on the little wrote on the document how much someone donated to, and you'd tear it off and you'd give it to them. It was like a physical thing. And you know, we'd get little $2, $5 donations, and I think in Mo Direction, I think that year we raised several $1,000s. I think we did okay. I can't recall how much we raised, but in the early days, what was great about it is, you know, you'd look across, whether it was at the pub or out somewhere, and you'd see another guy with a moustache, both looking as seedy as each other, and you kind of just look to do this little acknowledgement, like, oh yeah, you know what this is about, and then, like, if you were lucky enough, it'd start a conversation. For me, I have to admit, I'm not great at starting conversations with people I don't know. It doesn't come naturally to me. But having that opportunity and that reason to chat or to check in with people was big for me. And that idea that you had a reason to talk about things was was pretty important. And unfortunately, like most families and most people, mental health has touched on us and our family. And more recently, a close friend of mine, his brother committed suicide, and so these issues about mental health and stigmas around mental health, they're still there. And I'm pleased that there is an organisation out there which promotes those discussions. And of course, Movember does other things as well, but I think it's about promoting the discussions, and it's about talking about things which ordinarily wouldn't get discussed, even if it's just for that month. It's almost like you're giving permission just to let your guard down a bit in the form of a handlebar moustache, perhaps, but you let your guard down and it's okay to talk about things. And I do think there's a natural growth about what Movember does, and I guess that's for the organisation to decide what strategy it goes in. But I think certainly there's a role to play for mental health, for men's mental health, and then also family wellbeing as well. I think there's a broader discussion there because clearly mental health and men's mental health isn't the only issue facing society. Clearly, domestic violence is an issue. There are lots of issues that people face, and I think hopefully Movember can play its part in addressing or talking about some of the issues.
That's fantastic that you highlighted the potential future direction of where Movember could possibly take in terms of the issues that also play part and parcel with men's health or men's issues in particular. And I guess having opening the door to the conversation in one part of mental health can hopefully open the door in the other areas as well. You as a business owner and as a principal lawyer, how do you bring some of the conversations to light within your work? As you know, you're a head lawyer, or you're the owner. So how does that permeate through to your team?
They come to work with their own, perhaps a glass of things that are happening in their life, and work is one part of it. And sometimes something that someone says at work, you're constantly tipping water, and it might be that's what the tipping point is, but work is a part of it. And people come to work with all of this other stuff. They might have just had we as parents, maybe they had very little sleep over the past few nights, or maybe there is an illness in the family, or maybe they're stressed about something going on with their child or a family member. There's all of those issues. So people come to work not with a clean slate, and I think you've got to acknowledge that. We try and do some other activities as well. We have a retreat every year. We try and make that less about the organisation. We try and do that more about giving people an opportunity to work out what their personal goals are and reflect on that. And we set aside a day for that a year. I know that doesn't sound like much, but there's a lot of preparation that goes into it and a lot of things that happen before and afterwards. This year we were actually really pleased. We organised for those team members who wanted to come and were available to go to this is embarrassing, but to go and see the presentation by Hugh. Thank you, from the Resilience Project, and I'd seen him present before, and actually last Christmas, as part of the Christmas gift, we provided a copy of the first copy of the Resilience Project to the team. So again, I don't say that because to try and like preach and say this is how you should do it, and indeed, as a challenge of growing is working out how you do that and support that with a bigger team. A lot easier with yourself or with your own team or with a small team. When it gets bigger, how you try and make sure you actually you support that across the organisation is important. Actually, another good example of where we've shown that we're still learning is providing mentors. As a boutique organisation, we don't have endless resources and huge amounts of capacity in-house. So more recently, we've paired up some team members with external mentors and, leveraged our network to reach out and then given those team members, I guess, express permission to use work time, because this is still of value, to work time to then partner with those mentors and sit down with them. So it's not a formal mentoring program as such, because we really can't deliver that in-house. It's more just using our networks to find who they might want to be paired with. I think there's a few things we can do, but I guess as a business owner, it's just trying to appreciate that it's okay for people to have mental health issues, and if we can support in that treatment, that's great. And that was really challenging through COVID as well, in the peak through all the various restrictions, and if someone was in isolation. And so again, I don't know whether we've got that right all the time, but it's something that we're learning to do, I think, and hopefully we continue to try and build on what we learn.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That the key takeaway is really acknowledging the person, the individual does come with some level of their own makeup, whether it works a fraction of their glass, and their family life or personal life also contributes to that glass, and whatever might occur as a situation, if that occurs at work, then you acknowledge that and you try to support them in any which way. And I love the fact that you're building on using your networks, or creating a community of outside of the four walls of MPS Law. You're really drawing on the community of the legal profession itself. That it sounds like you're all here to help each other out, and it's fantastic that you lining or assigning someone with a mentor, which is fantastic. And
yeah, it's interesting as well with our profession. So the legal profession has a terrible track record of mental health, a terrible track record of really burning people out, particularly young lawyers. And what we need to do so much better as an industry for that. Again, people who join us, they join us for the right reasons, the passion. So again, we're not driven by a metric which says our only level of success is if you bill this amount. Don't get me wrong, that's necessary for a viable business, but that's not our vision. Our vision is client self-determination. That's our passion. And to get there, we put in long hours, but then to acknowledge that, we support team members in saying, well, look, Michael, I travelled to a remote place in the Northern Territory last weekend. Can I have a couple of days off? And it's all, well, of course you can. Yes, so we've written that into our policy now as well. So there's not this expectation, and to be honest, in the industry and there usually is that your only commitment is your lawyering, and working these ridiculous hours, which is just unsustainable. And don't get me wrong, it is necessary at parts in a career, not just in lawyering, but that hard work, those long hours are required in lots of different professions, but it's just not sustainable every day, every month. You can't keep that up. So we do have policies in place to try and make sure to say, well, look, you've worked pretty hard. You might need a recharge for a bit. Experience certainly tells me if you don't do that, that team member is likely to burn out, and which is actually counterproductive to an organisation's goals anyway. It's actually, there's a mutual interest in making sure that team members are operating at peak performance at the right times, not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Which is, it's funny, right? Because I'll say that, and that's my expectation of others, that they take breaks. But if you ask my wife Tamara, and it's not something that which I adopt. And so, to be honest, that's something that I'm also trying to work on. That giving myself permission to have breaks, which is really difficult because sometimes time just simply doesn't allow it. But just giving yourself permission to say, it's okay, that response to that letter, that issue doesn't need to be addressed right now. That doesn't come naturally. Like if I see something in my inbox, if I see a letter, I want to respond. I want to address it straight away. So I spoke about that idea of becoming more comfortable with the discomfort. That part of that for me and on that journey is becoming more comfortable with the discomfort that there's just work that hasn't been done yet. I want to do it and I want to get it done. I want to move on to the next thing, but I'm still coming to terms with the fact that just doesn't work all the time.
It sounds like you're really tackling the building in some level of transparency in terms of putting it into your policy about the level of work and sometimes in some organisations the expectations for those long hours, it's like a bit of a hush-hush expectation, but by putting it into your policies, it's really, you're making it transparent that if you've travelled to the far to a remote place and it's taken you X amount of hours and you just need a bit of time to recharge, then that's more than acceptable. And I love that that's part of the culture that you're developing here at MPS Law, which is fantastic. That whilst you're growing, it's fantastic that you're actually being transparent about those expectations. Now, Michael, we're about to wrap up. I know I've taken up quite some of your time here, so I really appreciate it. Now, before we do wrap up, I just wanted to ask you: is there, in case anybody was to want to know more about MPS Law and about the services that you provide, where can they find you?
We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We have a website. The interesting thing about all those types of profiles is that's usually a tool that we use to keep existing clients and friends up to date. All of our work actually comes from professional and personal referrals. So we have very little traffic on those pages for new work. It's purely just to keep people who are interested up to date with what we're doing and any new developments. But obviously people are welcome to follow. But certainly we are always happy to chat with people. It's a part of our vision is trying to make sure that the law, which is inherently complex, or at least us lawyers try to make it complex, we try and make sure it is as straightforward as possible. So we try and use those platforms to demystify some of those complex principles as best as we can, and always happy to take feedback on that as well if there's something on there which can be better said.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you again, Michael. This has been a fantastic opportunity to catch up. I don't think I've had as in-depth of a chat to you about your past in terms of your professional past to where you are now. So it's fantastic to actually get that insight. And obviously it is, you mentioned before that hard work has been your ethos, and but at the same time, also prioritizing is the best way to help you not burn out, and that allows you to be the father and the husband outside of these four walls, and also be as a resilient business owner without burning out by the time retirement comes. So I wish you all the success with MPS Law. Obviously, you guys are doing fantastic work here, which is great to see. And as your cousin, I'm super proud to be able to watch the success from the outside looking in, which is great. And as I said, I'm so super grateful that you've given up your time for this interview.
Cheers, mate.
Well, there you go. Episode number 3 with Michael Pagsanjan, Principal Lawyer, MPS Law. I am super grateful that Michael was able to take the time to share his perspectives as a business owner on how discussions surrounding mental health in the workplace are implemented within his business. I'm hoping that for business owners and business leaders who are watching this episode, that you're able to get some value and which may also lead to implementing similar processes in your business or organization. Also, just as a reminder that this project is to help with raising funds for Movember. Up on screen is our team page, and if you would like to donate, please click on the link in the comments or in the caption of this clip. Thank you again to everyone who has donated so far. I am forever grateful for your generosity in supporting this cause. Also, please like, share, drop a comment and subscribe to the YouTube channel and Facebook page. It really helps with understanding the impact that these episodes are having, and it would be great to engage in some conversation surrounding the content of the videos. Also, one last thing, on a serious note, we touched on suicide in this episode. If you or someone you know is experiencing thoughts of suicide, there are services that can help, such as Lifeline, who you can call on 13 11 14, or if there's an immediate threat to life, please contact 000. As I said, we touched on this, but I just wanted to reiterate that there are services available if you or if someone you know is experiencing thoughts of suicide. Thank you.